Well, hey there, writer. Welcome to the Resilient Writers Radio Show. I'm your host, Rhonda Douglas, and this is the podcast for writers who want to create and sustain a writing life they love. Because, let's face it, the writing life has its ups and downs, and we want to not just write, but also to be able to enjoy the process, so that we'll spend more time with our butt in chair getting those words on the page. This podcast is for writers who love books and everything that goes into the making of them. For writers who want to learn and grow in their craft and improve their writing skills. Writers who want to finish their books and get them out into the world so their ideal readers can enjoy them. Writers who want to spend more time in that flow state. Writers who want to connect with other writers to celebrate and be in community in this crazy roller coaster ride we call the writing life. We are resilient writers. We're writing for the rest of our lives, and we're having a good time doing it. So welcome, writer. I'm so glad you're here. Let's jump right into today's show. Well, hey there, writer. Welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Writers Radio Show. I'm really excited to have Kendra Pecci with me today. I said that right, Kendra, right?
It's Pecci. Thank you.
Okay. So Kendra lives for the thrill, both on the page and in real life. She spent her younger years riding horses, winning cop car chases, and jumping out of airplanes. And now she gets her adrenaline fix by writing women's suspense novels for readers who want to escape into stories with complex, independent heroines who live life on their own terms. And when she's not putting her characters into complicated situations that gets her own heart racing, she's immersed in a Stephen King novel, deconstructing her father-in-law's meatball recipe, or chasing her next adventure in the Colorado Rockies. I love that. So we're going to talk about her book, Focus on Deception, which is a novel that takes place in a world of PTA meetings, soccer games, and wine moms with someone by the name of Stella Meyers, who fits right in. And no one in her ritzy Connecticut suburb suspects that the photographer who captures weddings, parties, and fundraisers by day is robbing people blind at night. And Stella lives for the thrill. And after an exhilarating date with her daughter's new teacher, a 401k and steady paycheck starts to look more enticing until a ruthless blackmailer uncovers Stella's true identity and threatens her daughter. Then all bets are off. I love the sound of this. So in terms of vibes, you say it's like Ocean's 8 meets Big Little Lies with Gilmore Girls vibes.
I think that's about the best description I can come up with.
I love that.
A little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah. So how did the idea for this one come to you?
First of all, I should say it came a long time ago. So this took me a long time to bring to market. But I lived in Anchorage, Alaska at the time, and I was leaving my daughter's elementary school, and I just saw the president of the PTA's, car there, and she was about as near perfect a human as you could be. She was the whole package, and I just had a moment of thinking to myself, what if this is all a ruse? And what if, she is not who she appears to be? And by the time I made it home, which was just walking across the street, Stella Meyers was born. She was in my head. And I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest part of myself that I brought into Stella's character at the time was that I really was somebody who did a few adrenaline junkie things in my life. And I had given all that up. And to be a good mom. And I'm glad I made that decision, but I missed it a lot. Okay. And so this concept of like, hey, what if a mom who did all these crazy things kept doing them? Now Stella's origin story is a little different. She didn't actually start stealing until she was pregnant, but the idea that a woman wouldn't stop doing what she wanted and, kind of didn't care what people thought about her. And then this double life just gripped me and really did not let me go. So
I love this setting of the PTA moms, right? Because there's something about, I didn't do a lot of PTA work, I must confess, when my daughter was young, but I had a job that had a lot of travel. But there is this idea of like the perfect yummy mummy,
Yeah.
and how yeah, they're just like they've got everything going on, and it's kind of an intimidating thought because for most of
Oh,
us,
yeah.
we're nowhere near that perfect, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
why suspense? What was it about Stella in particular and this situation that had you thinking, you know what? I think I'm now writing suspense as a
Well, I
genre.
have to confess, that's the reason it took me so long. So I originally wrote Stella's story as a women's fiction novel, and I
Okay.
did not write it as suspense. And that was in 2011 when I started
Okay.
querying that. And I had great responses, but no one signed, couldn't grab an agent, couldn't get it
Right.
traditionally published. And the feedback was pretty consistent, like, oh, you've got a thriller on your hands
Oh,
and
okay.
you have to raise the stakes. Like something has to happen to her daughter or to her in order to do that. And I fought that. And I would say I fought that for a decade.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
I wanted to write it as a series. I wanted to write about a mom who, and in that original version, Stella took some risks, but she took them to help a friend.
Right.
She didn't have, and her overwhelm, she and I both agreed. If she were bad at her job and something happened to her daughter, she wouldn't be doing this work, right? She did
Right.
this because she was really, really good. And it wasn't until literally everyone, said, nope, you have to change it. If you want it to
Yeah.
be, this is a thriller, if you want it to be, and Stella and I had a long chat. And I mean, I'm not kidding about it, and she
Yeah.
was like, do not wreck me, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I finally said, I was like, something has to happen to Caitlin
Right.
if you want your story out there. And so
Mm.
we debated it and we came up with this. And then the reason it tips to women's suspense, and this kind of
Hmm.
feeds into why I self-published. Well, no, it is the reason I self-published, because even though has real thriller elements, it
Hmm.
still does not follow the genre conventions of a thriller.
Oh, in what way does it deviate?
You see Stella succeeding in her life for quite a while before
Okay.
I pull the rug out from under her.
Okay.
And I think that's very necessary for this book.
Mm.
If something happened to her kid, within the first 10% of the novel, if that
Yeah.
was the inciting incident, who would have any sympathy for her?
Right.
It'd be
Yes.
so easy to dismiss her and be like, why would you? Of course that happened to you. Of course it did. You broke the law. You do this thing. You
Yeah.
try to live this double life. You're not being a good mom. So
Hmm.
you needed to see her and understand what her life was like for a bit. And, she has
Okay.
romance and she has friends and there's all this stuff going on. And
Okay.
that's what you need to see first. So in the
Right.
end, I called it women's suspense because I think that encapsulates. You throw the word women's in front of
Right.
something and people are going to go, oh, there's going to be relationships here. You're going to see her,
Right.
living her mom life.
Yeah.
But
So it's not standard thriller
mm-mm,
genre. Yeah.
no,
Okay.
but I
So
had to write it well enough that people would start reading it and want to
right.
keep reading it. And that
And
does
feel
seem to.
that
Mhm.
sense of suspense, right?
Yeah,
Which is so
something
critical for that
pushing them
genre.
through.
Yeah.
And I think I've done that from what the
Right.
readers are saying. But
Yeah. So you decided to self-publish it. And was that this is the first time you've done that, right?
mhm, yeah.
And so how did you go about it? What was like, give me the big learnings of self-publishing a first novel.
Oh, Lord. Well, I like to say that in 2025, when I did this,
Hmm.
that I was riding a roller coaster. So all
Mm.
the ups and downs of riding a roller coaster while I was building the roller coaster. And then the
Right.
really key important part, while I was learning how to build a roller coaster.
Okay.
So that was 2025. And what helped me the most, and I think one of the reasons I reached out to you was I
Hmm.
made the decision, I put the line, I put some stakes in the ground, and that was really important for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I made the decision December 6th of 24 that I was going to publish this novel. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to self-publish it, and this is what we're going to do. But I had already thrown out the last version of the book, so I was starting over.
Oh, wow.
So I attended your goal setting class in January,
Yeah,
and I felt seen and heard, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this.
yeah.
And I was told in December, and this also helped me. I had an accountability partner who was a resilient writer, who was one of
Oh,
your, um,
oh, that's great.
yeah, one of your students. And she noticed, she said, when you made that decision and you kind of drew the line in the sand,
Yeah,
everything changed about
nice. I
you.
love that. Love that.
And so I had to book, I had to book developmental editors, line editors, proofreaders, all of it, cover design in
Mm,
December. Everyone's like,
right.
oh, they're filling up for next year. So if you want to publish next year, you have to do it. So that just became, so I set these deadlines for myself based
Wow.
on those
Okay.
contracts.
So how long did it take you to go through the full self-publishing process?
1 year. Honestly, 11 months because I made that
Yep.
decision December 6th and I published this book November 6th, 2025.
Right.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, because I think, there's this illusion that self-publishing is the shorter way to go. And it is compared to like
Yeah.
spend a year getting an agent, spend 6 months trying to get a deal, maybe even longer. Okay, now you've got a deal. Now it's going to come out 2 years or 3 years from now.
Right.
So compared to some
In that
traditional
sense,
paths,
yeah.
then yes, but it can take time if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
Right. So you had a developmental editor that I'm assuming
Mhm.
gave you feedback,
Mhm.
and then you had to address all that feedback, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, and get through the emotional turmoil of getting the
Right.
feedback. That's an
Yes.
important step to build in. Just give yourself a
Yes.
day or two to absorb it. But yeah,
Yes.
um,
So true, right? You get the
mhm,
feedback and you're like, whoa, wait.
yeah. I was like, I've still missed it again because I spent most of 2024 heavily involved in craft studying.
Yeah.
My journey was one where in 2012 is about the time I pulled the plug on pursuing publishing. We had
Mm,
moved across the country. My kids needed my attention. And again, I was very resistant to the idea of turning this into a thriller.
mm,
And so I kept writing, I'm
mm,
always going to write, but I stopped pursuing publication. And by the time I kind of came out of that wormhole in
mm,
2021, late 2021, early 2022, the world had changed.
yeah.
And, now there you can have access to incredible book
Yeah.
coaches and editors and people that are on your side.
Yeah.
I was jealous of you and everybody else that was smart enough to go get your MFA, in the
Right.
late 90s, early 2000s when I finally admitted I wanted to be a writer, that was out of my reach.
Right.
And,
Right.
and
I
so
mean,
coming
to be
back in,
fair, it's still on the credit card. I'm still paying it off, right?
yeah, and that was
Yeah.
what I couldn't
Yeah.
do. And so anyway, now I had access to those things.
Mm,
And so that really
love
was
that.
a game
Mm,
changer for me. But I
mm,
wanted to do it. I really wanted you to not be able to tell that it was
mhm.
not a traditionally published book.
Yes. Okay.
Other than the genre convention of going, and I understand that, right? I understood why I didn't think
Mhm.
it would be an easy sell for traditional publishing. And they run a business, and I understand corporations, and they need an easy sell. And
Yeah.
so, but other than that, of being able to go, it should be shelved right here, I
Mhm.
wanted it to look seamless. And
Yeah.
so, with access to good editors and the process and so much learning that I could
Mhm.
do, I really was able to produce that, I think.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So,
So, are you still keen on having it be a series?
so I thought because I had made the decision to
Mhm.
turn it into, to put her daughter at risk and to turn
Yeah.
it into more of this thriller type suspense, that I had eliminated that opportunity from me.
Oh, okay.
Um, because of the series I had envisioned just wasn't going to work anymore. But I will
Right.
tell you that readers have come back and fairly unanimously demanded more.
More of Stella.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I then started really thinking about it, and I looked at some other decisions that I'd made in the book. So I
Okay.
didn't just change that aspect. And I went, okay, there is a path forward
I
here.
can do this here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So, why Connecticut? Do you
oh,
like what's going on?
no, I have no connection to Connecticut. I've had people from Connecticut read it and it kind of panicked. It was
Okay.
literally just access to the city. You know,
Okay.
like what is a suburb of New York City that people who are very
Right.
wealthy might live in? That was it. I have
Okay.
no bone to pick with Connecticut.
Okay.
So,
get
But she's
down on
gonna, she
Connecticut.
needs to live somewhere where she can get in and out of places that
Okay.
have loot that she would want to steal. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
So at the end of, no, I won't ask that. That's a spoiler. We won't do that. Um,
I can probably work my way around it, but
no, we won't do any spoilers.
okay.
So, I'm curious though about kind of where you go next with the series.
Mhm.
Is there anything you can share about that? Like because there's different approaches to a series, right? There's like,
Yeah.
this is the world and everything, and it's different books in a world. And
Hmm.
then this is the character in a world and we follow the character. And then, there's a few others, but what kind of approach are you taking to this series? Is it like a Connecticut small town series? Is it
No,
Stella?
no, it's a
Stella.
Stella series, but
Okay.
I would say it's around her crew. So she has a best friend that is
Mhm.
probably the most important relationship in her life. There's people in her life. The goal is so it's not quite a static series, but
Mhm.
I don't know every answer yet, and I'm not a plotter. I'm not somebody, that
Okay.
really does the detail work, but it is critical to me that I write a book that's as good or better than the first one.
Right.
And so I will say this, and the other thought in my head, when I conceived this book, the version that finally made it, into publication, I knew what the end looked like. I didn't have the
Mm,
details for it, and I will tell you that one of the ways it ended did really surprise me, but I had the visual of the final scene in my mind.
okay.
And in the same way, the only thing I have really conceived of is what the end of this series would look like.
Okay.
And
Ooh.
so to me, the books that will come before that, and there is some reasons that I need that to be a while out,
Mm-hmm.
will be kind of picking up people and experiences and things
Okay.
that will then come together in the end for what I see
Right.
as the final book.
And what is it in Stella that people are connecting with that makes them go, more, please?
First, I have to say, shout out to her best friend,
Okay.
because there is a dynamic between Stella and Fiona that
Okay.
is unmatched. I mean, I really feel like it's one of the great duos, and people love that.
Okay.
So that helps, because
Hmm.
Fiona is everything that Stella is not. But I think it's her confidence.
Okay.
And I wanted to, if there's a lesson, you imagine that you've talked
Mm,
about it, the ideal reader who's sitting there,
yeah.
what do they take away from your book? I imagine this woman with three children, kind of old enough to take care of themselves for a bit, but still needing her, and her just
Right.
wanting to read and, go leave me alone until I finish this book.
Leave me alone till I finish. Yeah.
And I wanted her to think about it when she finishes the book, of one, going, okay, maybe I can take a few more risks.
Mm,
Maybe I don't have to do everything like the perfect PTA mom or whatever.
right. I don't have to jump out of an airplane, maybe,
Right.
but
But,
yeah.
I can do
Mhm.
something for myself, right? But also that aspect of going, but I also feel like I'm a pretty good mom. I'm
Okay.
doing it, right? Because Stella's doing some stuff that people are not going to like.
Okay. Hmm.
And that's okay. So I need people to embrace the morally gray character, that they'll stay with
Yeah.
her, but not,
Mm,
I want them to feel good about the decisions they make as
yeah.
moms. So,
Mm. Wow. So, this is the first book that you've written, that you've published,
yes.
rather,
Hmm.
and you worked on it for a long time. What were like the two or three big writing craft skills that you had to come to terms with and really embrace and learn in order to finish this book and get it out into the world?
I think the biggest one was trying to figure out what kind of a writer I am.
Okay.
And I had embraced the term pantser because that is what I thought I was. And people laugh at me. They're like, "Man, you'll throw a book away and just start over, with no problem." And that's true. I tried plotting. I really did.
Hmm.
That broke my brain. So I'm not a detailed plotter. But it was the introduction of the concept of the puzzler So the
Yes.
person who's kind of in the middle of those two things.
Yeah. Sometimes
That
called a plancer. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's really and Louis Jorstad is the one who introduced the concept of the puzzler to me. I know it wasn't original to him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so this in the middle person. So
Mhm.
I took his course in intuitive outlining,
Oh,
which
yes. Love that. Love
oh my
that.
God.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. So
that was
good.
it,
Yeah.
because I couldn't go full intuitive writing. I had done
Hmm.
that several times and I had books that were not publishable,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the muse and I had a great time, but we didn't end up with a plot
Right.
that, you really could
That doesn't
follow.
really work for anyone except you. Yeah.
Right. And again, the plotting just broke my brain. So that was, I think the
Right.
biggest key was doing the intuitive outlining, getting myself some direction, some idea, putting the kind of the stakes down in the ground for the important scenes that had to happen, and then letting myself play in the rest of it,
Mm.
to get the rest of the story written. So that was the biggest craft breakthrough that I had.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I love Lewis. I'll put a link in the show
Oh
notes
yeah, thanks.
to his thing because I
Mhm.
just I think it's great. So so the plan is to do a series.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about your writing rhythm, your writing ritual, your writing process. How are you getting this done? Because you've still got kids, right?
No, I will tell you, I mean, they exist, but they are not underfoot anymore. So
They don't live with you
no,
anymore.
I waited
Okay.
long enough. They are grown and flown,
Okay.
so,
All
and
right.
that was why I took this time. So I really am in a place of privilege. You
Mm,
know, my husband retired kind of early because he likes to climb mountains and do things. And he goes, I need to do this while my body still can.
right.
And then I said, okay, well, I'm retiring early too to write. And he was like, what? Because
Mm,
you're younger than me, and what are you doing?
what are you
And I
doing?
said, well, I need my brain to write these stories. So
Yes.
we're just going to go starving artist for a little while and get this done. And I was absolutely right to do that. So I really am privileged that my kids are grown and
Mm,
college is paid for, and
mm.
we can live
You're on
simply.
the other side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really am. But my process is so funny, and my hope is, and again, I attended your writing kickoff this year. I need to find a process that is functional,
Hmm.
and I am worried that I'm incapable of doing that. So my biggest fear is that. So I wrote this book because of both who I am and how
Hmm.
I set those deadlines. My
Yeah.
daughter got married last January, and I wanted to be fully in on that and things like that. And so I had only written 25% of the novel by February 1st.
Oh,
And I had a
wow.
deadline of March 1st to get the novel to my editor. And a
Okay.
quote from you one time was, when you were talking about affirmations and you said, I'm someone that makes my deadlines. And that is true of
Right.
me as well.
Okay. Good for
And
you.
so
That's
I
amazing.
almost killed
But that
myself.
is a lot of writing in a
It was
short
insane.
period of time.
Yeah. And I was really mad at myself. I was like, February is the shortest month of the year. Why did
Right.
you do this to yourself? Couldn't
Right.
you get a couple of extra days? And I did it. I slid that deadline in. I made the deadline to the developmental editor. Um, I needed then a couple of weeks to recover from that
Yeah.
experience,
Hmm.
but I loved it, but it's not sustainable. And then the
Hmm.
same thing ended up happening, at least with the first draft and that edit. It didn't have to be perfect to go to the developmental editor.
Hmm.
That's not a thing.
Yep.
It was a great first draft. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
written that first draft how many times at this point? So,
Right.
you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
different book, but still. And but the next deadline was just as bad.
Mm.
So I had committed to something in April, long before I decided to publish. And so I left myself I was going to the line editor June 1st. I had an entire book to revise in the month of May.
Wow.
And then that did need to be perfect,
Mm.
right? You don't send it to a line editor with,
Unfinished.
yeah.
No. Yeah.
Um, And so that was an intense experience. I mean, I worked 10 to 12 hours a day every day in the month of May without break.
Wow.
And I loved it. I really loved disappearing in the story and living the story and all of those things. But it literally, it almost killed
Must have
me.
been exhausting. You
It
must
really
have
was.
like sent it off and then did
Yeah,
nothing
became
for like 8
comatose.
weeks.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Wow.
And so I realized this time around, I'm like, I cannot do that again.
Right.
I have to balance it. but I'm also not positive. I've never done it that way. Let me put it
So,
that way.
so what's the plan?
Uh, it's a I'm doing a lot of studying on different, types of work and what productive looks like that's
Hmm.
in a nice way. I think
Yeah,
I'm probably going to admit that I'm a person who kind of pulses, this hot and
right.
cold.
Right, yes.
And so I think I'm trying to do, and so far this is what's happening in January, a couple of deep days where I
Hmm.
don't do anything but write, or in this port, I'm not writing yet, but I am working through outlining and trying to figure out again what the story looks like. And then a few days off where I can, because I still have a book to market
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
I do still have obligations as a human,
Yeah.
and then diving back into it. So that's the hope. If it doesn't work, then I will I'm not abandoning this series. I'm not abandoning my readers. And if I have to dive back in again for a month and say, this is what I'm doing, then I'll do
I mean,
it.
there is something lovely about, really going all in and
Mhm.
doing something in an intensive way
Yeah.
because you basically live in the story, right?
Yeah.
You come up for air and it's still Connecticut, you know?
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I
you're
love that.
still in it. Yeah, and that feels really great. But
Hmm.
it can be exhausting. We do in my first book finish program, we do these page booster weekends.
Hmm.
And the thing I'm always telling people is like, don't hit Monday morning hating your book and not wanting to do anything because you work too hard on the
Right.
weekend because that's just it's gonna hurt. It's
Yeah,
gonna
it
hurt.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do, I loved the experience of getting lost in the story.
Hmm.
Um, I that just was something, it's how I read as well,
Right.
but
Yes.
it's faster to read than it is to write.
Mhm.
So
Much,
I could
much.
disappear for a
Sadly.
weekend and be fine and
Sad
no,
but true, Kendra.
right.
Sad but true. Yeah.
So I did love that. And my husband was quite tolerant, and I said, you're on everything duty for the next month. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing everything and supporting me. And he was great with that. But about 3 weeks in, I told him, I said, I will make this deadline. I
Right.
said, but this is not sustained. Like, I'm ready for a break.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sleep in one
Yeah.
day or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I think it's so important to have a sustainable writing routine. Like it's
mhm.
just so critical
Yeah.
because we all have other things we have to do. Whether you're employed or not, somebody's got to get toilet paper in the
Oh,
bathroom.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's always extra stuff to do. Yeah.
And I do love that I feel like I've written in almost every experience. When my daughter and then my son was born, I was the one writing in 15-minute,
Oh,
drops off, at school drop off. And I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because my daughter slept till 6 or 7, and I'd get a little writing in. I
wow.
wrote
Okay.
my memoir during those years. I wrote, I mean, I've done it every way. I wrote during, so the last time the manuscript I threw away in 25 or 24, I was working for a company in a very high-powered sales job.
Hmm.
Um, you know, really tough environment. And I had told myself that I was going to finish a book that year. And
Hmm.
in 90 days, I had 100,000 words toward a draft.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So, and
sure.
that was on lunch breaks here and there and those. And so I've done it in every, I
Yeah.
know I can do it.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
totally possible. I see that in my first book finish program all the time where
mhm,
people, 3 months and the draft is done.
yeah.
So you just have to be conscious of being consistent with your time
Yeah.
instead
And
of,
I think the main thing, the one epiphany I really had with getting this, finally crossing that finish line,
mhm.
is that it really is, it's 90% mental. If
Yes,
you
it
can
is.
get out of your own way,
Yes.
whatever that means,
Which
then you
is hard
can do it.
sometimes,
It's
right? You kind of,
very hard,
it's very hard to do that on your own.
you
You
know? And
often
so
sort of,
finding the
yeah,
way, how does your brain work? How does your time
yeah,
work? What can you give things? Doing that, boy, that's a game changer.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I do think there's a path for everybody.
Yeah, I
There
agree.
is.
Yeah, I agree.
So. But
So, Kendra, what's your plan for marketing the book? I mean, it's often the big thing with self-pub, right?
Mhm.
You get the book out there, and now, congratulations, you're a publishing firm.
Yes.
And so, how do you market it?
Well, this is one of the joys of waiting until your children are older to publish a book, and that is
Mhm.
that I'm getting a lot of help from my daughter and her wife.
Oh, great. Love
Yes,
that.
I am so grateful for them because I'm terrible at Canva and all those things. And I will say to them, hey, I want to make a post about a shopping guide for Stella and Fiona for the holiday. And they'll go, we're on it. And they'll make it for me.
Oh,
And
that's so great.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's helping. I mean, I
Hmm.
cannot say enough how much that's helping me. But I did kind of a guru marketing thing to launch
Hmm.
the book. And what that
What is
meant was I
that? What
released
is
the book.
guru marketing?
Okay, this is a confession. I released the book November 6th. I followed um, advice from a woman named Ashley Shepard, who wrote a
Okay.
book called Publishable Profitable Publishing with
Okay.
Pre-Orders. I'm gonna get that
Great.
right. And it's probably sitting behind me. And so I took her advice and I took the advice of this guy my son follows on social media. His name is Gary V.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
know him.
The
And I,
business team. Hmm.
yeah, and he's very intense and he's like, just go for it. And so I literally messaged every single person in my phone and every single one of my friends on Facebook. Facebook has limits of what you can
Wow.
do. So it had to,
Yeah.
and I wrote personal messages. They were not generic,
Mm,
saying my book was coming out, you know,
amazing.
and did they want to support me? And so by 2 days after my launch, I had then sold the number of books I wanted to sell for the first year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, that's amazing.
Thank
Good
you.
for
It
you.
felt so
That's
good. And
great.
now I've got a couple hundred more. So I'm over 450. I try not
Wow.
to track
Mm,
it too frequently. And the benefit of that is that will take time.
hmm.
So like it's going to take time for people to actually read the book.
Yeah.
Reviews are trickling in, things like that. And so that big push in the beginning
Hmm.
buys me some time to now turn
Hmm.
around and focus on the next book, see what I want to
Right. Love
do.
it.
So that was kind of the stroke of genius or just Stella's confidence coming through.
I
Like,
love
I'm going to do
that.
this. And
Yes, I love that. What would Stella do? Let's do it that way.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Okay.
so I'm glad I did that. And, I need to figure out TikTok, God forbid. Um,
Okay. Do you know about author scale?
no, I know nothing.
Okay. So, like, just Google it, author
Okay.
scale. It allows you to do faceless TikToks that are all based on your book.
Oh, okay. I will
Yeah,
check.
they're so good.
Thank
So
you.
I think you're going to do TikTok. I highly recommend
Oh,
author scale.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been very resistant to this because I wasn't even on TikTok, so it's not
yeah,
something,
I know. Yeah.
I do the old
I had to
woman
get off
TikTok.
TikTok because TikTok was sending me videos saying maybe you want to spend less time on TikTok. And so I was like,
That is a
oh,
sign.
no TikTok for me. It's a sign. It's totally a sign. So, well,
Yeah.
this is so amazing. I'm so
Oh,
happy for you.
thank
And
you.
you've done amazing work with it. So,
Thank you.
congratulations. You
I
feeling good
really
about it?
appreciate it. I
Yeah.
feel really, really good about it. And I think the best thing is knowing, the same thing with marketing. I wrote a book that I love
Yeah.
and that readers are starting to really love. I got my first Bookstagram review and by a
Nice.
total stranger and things. And that feels really good. And so
Yeah.
that also makes marketing more accessible.
Totally. Yeah.
It's not for everybody. I don't pretend that the book is, but
Hmm.
if you want to escape for a little while and you do
Right.
like kind of some, badass women that make
Hmm.
interesting choices, great. You're gonna have a
You're
couple days of just
gonna love it.
disappearing in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
that feels good. So
Good. Well, thanks so much for talking to me about it, Kendra. Really
thank
appreciate it.
you. And thank you, Rhonda. I mean it for all that you do for all the writers in the world. You
Oh
you are an
gosh. Thank
incredible
you.
person and you do great work. And books like Focus on Deception are a result of what you give to the world. So
Oh
thank you,
gosh.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Okay, wonderful.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today and for listening all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Resilient Writers Radio Show. While you're here, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider leaving a rating and review of the show. You can do that in whatever app you're using to listen to the show right now, and it just takes a few minutes. Your ratings and reviews tell the podcast algorithm gods that yes, this is a great show. Definitely recommend it to other writers. And that will help us reach new listeners who might need a boost in their writing lives today as well. So please take a moment and leave a review. I'd really appreciate it, and I promise to read every single one. Thank you so much.